So here's the deal. If you're a person who never looks at paper, you know what I'm going to talk about. If you look at the printed program, you're going to have a surprise. I had a great idea. Our world, comedy sports, is in 25 cities across the United States, Manchester in the UK, give a shout out, and Berlin. Nice. Thank you, Berlin. And in 2011, we decided we wanted a new logo. And so we set up a committee, as you always do. And the committee did probably $250,000 US of work in rebranding, creating an entire framework, and then coming up with new logos. Like, we used to be a group called Comedy Sports that plays a show called Comedy Sports at locations called Comedy Sports, except when we did other shows that weren't comedy sports, or we did AI training, which is not comedy sports, or we did scripted material, or you see the problem. I'm going to see comedy sports at comedy sports with comedy sports, except when it's not comedy sports. So we changed the companies to CSZ, and we had a new fabulous logo for CSZ. And we have a fabulous logo for comedy sports, which I don't think I show. And I had a brilliant talk about what happened in the 3 years that this took. People who go into companies and ask people to change had a lot of trouble changing. What do you mean? It's 20 years of being comedy sports. I've got that investment in this brand. I can't change. And of course, all the people on the committee were like, yes, you can, and you're idiots. And the people not on the committee said, no, you're idiots, not on the committee. And a lot of personal friendships were frayed, and business friendships were frayed. And eventually, I used to be the executive director of our worldwide organization, and I resigned because of it. Ultimately, because the friendships were more important than the brand for me. So I was going to give you a 10-minute speech on that, and then I wrote it and realized I was throwing everybody under the bus, including me. So I didn't want to do it, and I asked Paul what I could do, and I offered the space to somebody else, but I also offered to do a talk that I have done before, and because it's so brilliant, it was accepted. So we do a lot of applied improv training as well as performance, and I have a little thing called Win the First 2 Minutes. It's going to take me about 8 minutes to deliver it to you. So, great. And these are all things that I've learned in working with corporate clients. I've worked with everybody from garbage companies to Nike, and Nike is wearing the Nikes, for those of you in the learning journey. I'm wearing them. Right on. I talked about working with Nike, and they said, you're wearing Adidas. And I went, they're more comfortable. So these are comfortable too. So these are things I've learned. And in Nike, they move so fast, and they filtered everybody out and that doesn't want to play, and there's no problem working with them. But a lot of other companies, you run into problems, right? You run into people who resist. Anne-Marie talked about 10% of people said yes. There were some maybes, and a bunch of people are no people, and those are all the people that we face. And I've found a bunch of ways to help us get past that. If you don't like the ways, please don't use them. If you like the ways, please do. The first is know your client. It's really simple. There's a thing called the internet, and look at their website, and then talk to them. If you're talking to a cloud-based services company, and you say the word software to describe what they do, they will kill you. Next, and this is so obvious, show up early. Be there way ahead of time. Then, when they come in, offer to get people water or coffee and see how they feel about you. Sometimes when we host events at our theater location, I get to serve people beers and wine beforehand. That makes things go a lot easier. But honestly, it's not the alcohol, I think it's the service. The next thing is connect improv to their work. So what I say is this. In our shows, we have a referee, and that referee acts as an MC and gets suggestions from the audience. They get a suggestion. They turn to the team and say, your suggestion is this. This is the game you're playing. Players, are you ready? The players say yes, and they start. So in less than 10 seconds, they have to start creating material that people like and will pay for, or the audience will leave. Does this sound like your work? And most people go, yes, it does. So we connect there. The other way we connect is through making the concepts about them. So I reflect pretty early, but the game is about what they think and not about what I think. And I tell them ahead of time that I am very interested in what their responses are, because they will be responses that I've never heard before, even if that's not true. The next thing is the number one fear that people have is dying. The number two fear people have is public speaking. So why would we tell people or let people think that they're going to have to perform? So in the sales process, we try to prevent having surprises. Yeah, I'm going to surprise my team with this event. We try to discourage that, and we also let them know that they will not have to perform. And I keep that promise for a couple of hours. After that, it won't matter. The next one, and this may be unique to our culture, but I've talked to people in a few other countries, and it's somewhat true there. The most stereotypical person resistant to your work are 30 to 40-year-old male sports fans. And I do something very silly, but it works, and that is I let them know I'm one of them. I have a couple things. I quote from a book by Pat Riley, who used to be an NBA coach. He has a book called The Winner Within. It's a management book. There are one or two things you might get out of it as well. I also own a share of the Green Bay Packers, a National Football League team. So I am an NFL owner. I like to drop that one. But also in another game, in one of my anti-violence rules, I tell people they can't block, they can't tackle, and they can't set picks, which is a basketball term. That may not work for you. You might have to come up with something else. But you can see the sports guys go, oh, all right, cool. I got it. This guy's okay. So another thing I do in the beginning is we have a thing called a covenant, which is a thing I got from Pat Riley, who used to be an NBA coach. See what I did there? It's called the covenant. It's a base agreement, and then we're all going to put some energy into today. We don't need to go crazy, but let's put some energy in. But here's another thing. If there's any activity that you feel physically or emotionally unable to do, you may sit out of the activity. But you can't lure anyone else out, and you can't comment on it unless we invite you to. Is that okay? And everyone says yes. Now, I've just given people permission to sit out, right? Yes, and I've challenged them. Because who is physically or emotionally unable to do this stuff? When I have people who ride around in motorized scooters and wheelchairs and casts and crutches who can do this stuff. Anybody can do this stuff. And you can, of course, adapt for anybody's physical ability or disability. But we turn it into a challenge, and I have very few people sit out. There was one guy. So the next thing is possibly my most controversial thing. And that is, I tell people, there's something that I wish I had been told when I was 13 years old. It would have made my life so much easier. And that is this. Whenever you're feeling silly or exposed or that you're doing something stupid, here's the thing. Nobody cares about you. I tell corporate clients, nobody cares about you. And they all go, and look around. And go, did he just say that? Well, yes, he did. And then I say, so why do I say that? And somebody will go, because we're only thinking about ourselves. And everybody's like, oh yeah, I got it. But it's true. Nobody does care about the silly things. Let it go. And they go okay. The next thing is something that people have trouble with in the improv world, and that is they want to do things differently every time. And I don't. I've played the same 5 games to open workshops. Sometimes I substitute a game, and sometimes when I learn something new, it becomes one of the 5. But I do the same 5 games. I know them cold. And there was recently a podcast that Paul Levy, who is not here, but is also brilliant, was on, and he said, improv doesn't mean you never do what you've done before. Improv is choosing when to use your tools. Use them at the right time, and it's perfect. So know the games cold so that you're not stumbling, you are confident, you know what most of the results might be, although participants will always surprise you. But hone that sequence. The next thing is that the first game has to be extremely simple. A lot of people get so excited about improv and they want people to get huggy and touchy-feely and make contact and connect with their souls and look deeply into each other's eyes and touch each other. And that's what happens. So make the first game super, super simple. The next thing is make the reflections good and finish on time.